yeah, that seems like something we could talk about or we could address. And then when it starts getting into it, it does create a slippery slope of like, oh my gosh, this could actually become a pretty overwhelming administrative service that the city doesn't have the staff currently to provide. So I thought it would maybe be best if we sort of just talked generally about what sort of my operating philosophy with community councils are. And of course, I'm open to conversation and discussion. It is somewhat nebulous because there isn't defined boundaries. So there's a lot of movement to make. But this sort of idea that we have with particularly using the SLCN, I think is a great model, but again, open to ideas. So this is sort of to avoid those sort of nagging questions of like, why isn't the city doing this? Or why doesn't the city provide this? Or the city sitting there going, why isn't the community council doing this? Or why aren't they providing this? And just getting on the same page. You've probably all seen the ordinance that pertains to officially recognized community organizations, which actually do expand beyond community councils. I would say the list of organizations beyond community councils is not terribly robust. And I think it's a little unfortunate because I do wish more organizations were represented. The ordinance seems to really encourage that. It says that a community organization is a voluntary group of individuals organized under or around a particular community interest for the purpose of collectively addressing issues and interests common to that group. So that's pretty broad. And we have had some interest groups register, but I would say that their sort of longevity is not always there. One thing that it does say in that ordinance, it says a community organization is not a subsidiary of Salt Lake City government. And I think that's pretty important to understand, both from the city standpoint, but also the community council standpoint, is that independence, right? You are all operating your own nonprofit organization, representing your own communities, and you aren't a subsidiary of the city. You are independent. You have your own issues and all that. However, of course, we have a very symbiotic relationship, and we should be. But it's important to note that aside from our liaisons, we don't have particular support for community councils in our staffing plans. So we have to be sure that we're using the resources that we have to the best use and time that we can. One thing that I think is an important point also, especially when we're talking about like equity in our city, is this idea that the strength of your voice as a community council really comes from how well representative you are of your community. Are the different, and this is, these are all big dreams sometimes because it's hard. I know how hard it is to recruit people to participate and be involved. But if a community council is more representative and has representation from different segments of the folks that live within your boundaries, it's going to be the voice that you bring, the collective voice that you bring to the city is going to be stronger. And it's not going to require that the city like tries to figure out, more deeply what's going on in the community, which could happen if we're not having good representation by your councils, which, a lot of you are really on top of that. Another key component, I think, is being well-informed. Processes of the city, understanding where are those opportunities to participate, whether it's with planning or city council, and not only for you as the chair or the vice chair or in your community council leadership to understand where those opportunities are, but to help educate the community as a whole where those best opportunities are for you to participate in the city process. And of course, we're absolutely here to help with that in any way that we can help provide, education for the community. It's part of that symbiotic relationship, right? I mean, we benefit from the strength of your voice as community councils. We benefit from the level of education and of the community as a whole. And so anything that we can do to help with that education process is super important and valuable to us. And we have folks that can do it, obviously. It's really great for us. The more self-sufficient and organized and on top of community or of city matters that pertain to your particular community you can be. I know it's harder sometimes for smaller community councils. I know there's a lot of information. We've had a lot of conversations internally at the city about how much stuff comes out from the city all the time and how we might better organize that so that it doesn't feel like you're being inundated. Hold on, I gotta close my door because I got my Roomba running and it's about to come in this room and it's gonna get really noisy. Hold on.
Send it over when you're through.
Sorry. Okay. I'll pause here for a second. Any comments, questions? I don't think any of this is rocket science, but I just, feel like it's good to lay it all out there.
Actually, yeah, I've got a couple of questions. And I hate to compare administrations, but under the previous administration, Mayor Biskupski would meet with community council leadership once a quarter. And I know that COVID has changed things, but are there any plans in the works under Mayor Mendenhall to do that as well?
He does it already.
The mayor does have quarterly meetings. I don't know. I've sent invitations out to community council chairs, and they have certainly been able to pass that along to others. But we've had 3 of those meetings, I think, at this point too.
Okay,
Yeah, so
I
they have
need
been going
to
on
talk
quarterly.
to my chair then, because
Talk to your chair.
that is not getting passed on.
Yeah, and those meetings have been a little bit hard because I do think a lot of the value of those meetings are like the conversations that you can all have with each other, and the mayor can go around and chat, and it kind of creates so much more of a formal environment in Zoom where you've got to like present and Q&A and all that stuff, which is good too. But if any of you have any advice or suggestions on how those could be made more valuable, I'm absolutely open to some ideas there as well. Because that's always a little tricky for us. Thanks, Nigel, for bringing that up. Yeah, and that's part of that sort of informed community part. We rely pretty heavily on community council organizations to help disperse information, not only from the chair to your board, Nigel, but also to the rest of your community. And we do offer some of that special access and unique opportunities to interface with the mayor. You probably get more FaceTime with, department and division chairs just because of your positions. Not that we are exclusive in any way, but it just kind of happens that way. And but the real value of those interactions are when you are able to share what you learn from those interactions, or what you glean from that with your broader community. And then I think we all benefit from that sort of spread of information. And then I think another thing that's super valuable as well, and you are all, I think community councils are really great with this. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding within the broader community, and that's sort of understanding the systems of government outside of the city and what the city actually has authority over versus what other entities have authority over, the county, the state, even federal government. It can be confusing for people. But sometimes people are asking the city to do things that is not part of our purview. So having a good understanding of that is really valuable too. And again, if there's anything we can do to help with that education process for the broader community, I think that's important.
Hey, Weston, Richard Holman here.
Hey, Richard.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'd like to offer up 3 areas that I believe all community councils and community-based organizations share. Communication, information, and organizational structure. And what I would like to put on the table is a discussion of how we could have the city perhaps maybe even cost share, or even pick up the tab for our web hosting, which would be a singular cost, predictable, annual. I think that Dennis Ferris is already working with the Utah Nonprofit Association, which gives everybody uniform access to all of the formulation documents and governing documents and a lot of other stuff that's useful. And then the structural piece, there is an organization, and of course I would forget the name of it because I'm an old guy, that you buy a membership in, and they provide you software at incredibly reduced rates. We just used this forum to purchase QuickBooks for $39, and it's the web-based, cloud-based version of it. So it's quite robust. And I mean, you can buy, in fact, I think it was actually less than that. It was like $19. But we also have access to the complete 2019 Office Suite, which is $39 for the organization. So, and they have just a whole host of software you get for, like, in some cases, just a fraction, a small fraction of the cost. Those kinds of memberships under perhaps the leadership of SLCN, those things get paid one time annually. They're very low cost. They don't put you in the position of having to staff anything necessarily. And I think those become some points around which we can sort of rally and have some commonality and common tools without every single community council that has a website, they host it. It's a duplicative cost that I think we can maybe find a different way to handle.
Love that, Richard. Would love to be able to combine a lot of these things under the SLCN umbrella so that we can all, as members of SLCN, reap the benefits, but without having to individually pay any membership dues, fees, whatnot. Jasmine put Tech Soup in the chat box. Is that the
Yes
group that Richard was talking about? Okay.
Yeah, that is it.
I think I've vaguely heard of it, but not overly familiar with it. So I'll have to look into that one. And sounds like a great idea. So that maybe we could do a membership there and be able to apply those benefits to everyone here and beyond. So yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
hosting your website?
I'm sorry?
Hosting your website?
Yeah. Well, somebody has. Yeah.
X-Mission has hosted ours, Bonneville Hills Community Council, for 20 years for free. It's a service they offer community councils.
Yeah, they offer that to nonprofits, 501c3s.
Right.
So it definitely could be an option. So we'd like to, I've been talking with our group here at SLCN so that see if we can do a better job of compiling these types of resources and distributing them to everyone so that they all know, for example, hey, click here fill out the form to apply for a 501c3 grant from X-Mission to do free web hosting. It's like Ellen says, a lot of organizations have had a lot of great luck with it. So for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, there's options there that if we can combine our resources and any tips that anyone's got and bring them all together in the same pool, and hopefully we can all reap some benefits.
Great.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. And thanks, Richard. Like, I agree. I love this conversation because I think that kind of goes to, I think the big point that I'm hoping to make at the end here is to really sort of utilize the SLCN as that. I think it brings kind of two pieces of support. One is through Jasmine and NeighborWorks, who the city has agreed to help support administratively. Jasmine help the SLCN function, as well as help the SLCN move forward with some minor cost expenditures that may come up. So that this, like, more valuable than the city providing stuff is like the cross-pollinating and the cross of ideas of the different organizations here in the SLCN. Because you all have more experience operating your community councils than I do, and so having that sort of sharing opportunity, I think, is so valuable. That's great. So that's a good conversation to have. Thanks, Richard.
I would like to say that everyone looks very dour this morning. I'm wondering if I should put on like a cat filter on my face or something to cheer everybody up here. Wake up, people.
You
So
are
this
not
is
a
great.
cat, Dennis.
This is great stuff. Is there anything else, anyone else? What types of supports do we need so that we can be successful organizations within our communities? How can SLCN and Salt Lake City support us all to be successful organizations, to engage everyone that we need to in our communities, to have representative councils, representative board makeup for the people in our communities? And what kind of stuff do you need to see? Anyone?
I
There we
will
go.
have something. I think communication is a challenge that probably every community council is grappling with. There are some of us that want to do things digitally, and there are also some of us that make the argument that there are people in our communities that are older and don't respond to that sort of thing, which would involve either in-person meetings or communicating via some sort of printed material, which has costs that the community councils don't have the budgets for. So what are thoughts on bridging both of those schools of thought in a way that we can communicate best with the communities that we serve?
So there is, the city library is providing Zoom accounts to the community councils to use for meetings like this. So that's certainly plenty helpful on that front. Personally, I'm of the mind that print communication is frankly gone by the wayside at this point. Is there anyone here still doing a newsletter, an actual physical newsletter?
We are in the avenues.
Are you?
And in fact, we had a discussion about this at our last board meeting. And we've got one of our newest board members is in her 20s. And she was alerted to the community council through the newsletter that she got at her apartment. And it brought up that although it may not be the most efficient, it is still effective, even for millennials that are coming in to do it. And the reason I think it is it's a push. It's something we send out to people so they don't have to do anything except look in their mailbox. Where most of our websites and most of the other things, people have to go search for it. It's got to be a pull. This one's a push. And for us, it's something we've continued to do.
Elko and West Point also do an online emailed newsletter.
Yeah, Avenues does. And I would think that an emailed version would be great, easier, cheaper to reach more people. But if Avenues got one person, then hey, all right. I'm just kind of curious what the ROI is on that. How many years you've been doing a printed newsletter to bring in the 1 million?
Forever. And the discussion was, should we continue it? And that's where it's still effective. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, obviously it was very effective. The issue with electronic, an email newsletter, which we also do a little bit of that, but is who gets it? How you keep it current, how you keep it live. We've got 8,800 addresses in our community council. Physical addresses that we send that newsletter to, trying to keep track of people moving in and out of the neighborhood through an email list would be really problematic, I think.
How so?
I've got a
somebody moves and when somebody comes back in, if somebody moves in or out of the neighborhood.
This is Gwen. Let me talk to the history just a little bit. We've been doing it for at least 20 years. And the thing that makes it so doable is that we have a sponsor that pays for it. The LDS hospital here on the Avenues, they get a half of a page and they, remind me, Dave, do they pay for the printing? They do the printing.
They do the printing.
And then we do the mailing, but it goes to every single address on the Avenues. And so, and the thing that I like most about it is that we can include articles in the newsletter that are linked to our guests for the meeting. So if we have someone speaking about clean air at our meeting, we can have articles in the newsletter from that person that's speaking, an article about their topic, and then and other things. And so we're able to get our message that we're currently focusing on, not only to the people that come to our meetings, but everybody who open it when it comes into their mailbox. So I think it'll be a long time before the Avenues gives up on this, as long as we've got our sponsor.
That makes sense. So we just need to find some citywide sponsors.
Well,
Um,
and at Fair Park, we did the same thing. We had a number of smaller sponsors, but it became too difficult to keep them on. So maybe if there was a way to create some sort of collective sponsorship that would involve several community councils. I mean, maybe even through this organization or West Side Coalition, so that we could provide better value to the sponsor.
There you go. So I also don't want to say that we have to come up with a single solution that's going to work for everyone. I think it's great that we're utilizing different tools depending on where we are in the city and what our situation is. So yeah, if anyone can find a sponsor in their neighborhood, can pool together the resources to be able to put together a print newsletter, I agree. I think it's great. Receiving Westview Media's the Westview newspaper regularly in my mailbox, goes to every mailbox in the 2 zip codes, 84104, 84116, is fantastic. So I do definitely appreciate receiving the print version. I'm just particularly hesitant considering the resources necessary.
Sugar House sends out a newsletter, and this is where we rely on the city for information on road construction, development. I know this doesn't happen in every community council, but they're amazing to work with for any of that kind of information.
Alrighty, so communication is definitely an important issue. Paper or print is an option. Also online stuff. Is there any other? What else? What other kinds of supports do we need?
Well, there's 2 things I'd like to throw out there, Dennis. The first is we have an underutilized resource, and I just ran out of bandwidth to try and chase it down, but that's community access television, channel 17, and I don't know what the cable number is, but I talked to Poonam a little bit about this, and I think it needs to be elevated. She liked the idea, but you know, if I can do it on my schedule and tune in and let it roll through a couple of announcements, if I can have multiple languages available, you know, those are the challenges that we face in many parts of our community, is that, yeah, we could put something up, but it's in the wrong language. And so community access television, I spent literally 2 hours looking at community access television, and a lot of it is ads from the 1970s that were public service announcements. There is a lot of space and capacity there to be able to put up what's important to communities, even if it did nothing more than scroll through. So I think we ought to look at that underutilized resource and figure out how the communities can interface to get content. And of course, I understand there's production and things like that, but if they give us the right format, we get the stuff in, we send it to them, it gets posted. This is not rocket science. So that's the first thing I think is an underutilized resource that people can tune into. And we make use of our current newsletters and other forms of communication to let people know, go here, do this, and you can find out what's going on with the communities. Now, it may take some time because it's got to scroll through to your community, but that's one thing. The second thing, and I don't know who else might have this issue, I see planning and zoning notices probably anywhere from 2 to 5 times, maybe more, per week. And as we head towards spring and construction begins again in earnest, people are doing things. This is a developing community all over the place. But the demand on people's time to go through all those things, make public comment, provide input, review them. And even if you had somebody that understands that stuff, the volume is overwhelming. I think we need to work with our district, our council people to come up with an alternative way to consolidate some of these things. You know, I'll give you an example. Development on the north end of Salt Lake impacts everybody downstream on the west side, because Redwood Road, 215, 80, 15, they're all in our community. So we got people traversing Redwood Road. They're looking at putting 1,200 units north of us. Well, where do you think those people are going to shop? Where do you think they're going to, how are they going to get to work when 15's crowded? You know, they're going to overwhelm the infrastructure, but we're not able to respond to those things adequately because the notice goes to one community, but it affects 5. So how can we get the resources necessary to either train people on how to review these things, or put together multiple communities into some level of funded activity that lets them sit down and review everything at one time with representatives from multiple communities? Something has to happen, because what's happening is we're not getting commentary in to those developments. And as a result, we end up trying to fix problems after the fact that if we had the resources, we could have gotten in front of.
So Richard, I agree completely. So much so that that's actually the vision that I have for this organization. So that this brings everyone together very specifically to be able to support each other. I'm going to go through in a moment here, go through the chat and the chat box and kind of discuss some of the stuff that's coming up in there too. But Amy Hawkins brought up needing assistance with 501c3 paperwork. A lot of us have done that, have gone through multiple iterations of it, having to recover it from the IRS. Let's work together and utilize our institutional knowledge and share that with the other organizations. And if that means something like what you're talking about regarding North Temple or Redwood development on the west side, traffic on Foothill Boulevard, whatever the issue, whether it be east, west, north, or south, somewhere in the middle. I mean, like Amy's definitely a big fan of the crime issues. So let's all work together. We can start separate committees for different areas to bring together very specifically the communities that are impacted by whatever that any given issue may be, that other organizations can come and go from as it affects them. And I would love to there is a new guidebook coming out that the city has been working with in partnership with Jasmine at NeighborWorks to help to give some guidance to communities, to the organizations on all the different things that they can do to stay in touch. So that's, I understand, will be coming soon. And with that can definitely help to plug into the resource, to the training that we need to be able to adequately understand what's happening when we get those notices of developments that are coming, because most of the words, most of the impacts of what they're proposing aren't, unless you're really deep into it, we don't necessarily know. We're not all Judy. But we can tap into Judy's institutional knowledge and understand that Sugar House has been working on development issues for decades and utilize their experience. Let's ask each other these questions. That's very specifically why we're here. So I love that. Yes, Alan.
One of the toughest nuts we have to crack with community councils is getting full community involvement, especially among the minorities. We have been trying for years and years and years and years, and the bulk of our members look like me, and they're gray, and we've tried all kinds of things, and maybe this organization can put heads together and figure out how to really reach into a community and hear all of the voices, not just a few.
Absolutely.
Because 30 people is a good number for a community council meeting. You know, we'd be happy, but we really need to be getting a lot more than that. the different ethnic groups, different age groups, you know,
So
everything.
So let's put together some sort of a committee, a group of us to work specifically on diversity and engagement. I know it's an issue for all of us, I mean, myself included, that our board is more representative of the community today than it ever has been, but still certainly not fully representative. So there's lots of work to do, I think, for all of us to be able to bring everyone to the table. So yeah, let's work on that issue and do it together and start trying different things in different neighborhoods, see what works and what doesn't, start applying those best practices citywide, and just by notifying everyone of what options are, so that we're not all just looking at each other saying, I don't know, you know, let's come up with any idea, try and utilize whatever best ideas anybody can find at all. Tobias, are you actually on the mountain, or is this just set design here?
This is set design. Sorry, I'm actually at Herman Franks Park right now. I think in regards to the increase in the neighborhood participation amongst all groups in our neighborhood, one thing that I feel we kind of need to think about that, but we can't do much until this COVID thing's over, because a lot of that outreach is going to require in-person get-togethers, trying to just create more community within our community. And so I think maybe planning now on this, but realizing that we're probably looking at summertime at the earliest for being able to execute.
Yeah, the word from the state health department this morning was that most anybody who wants a vaccine could have it by as early as the end of May. So now is definitely the time to start planning those types of things so that we can be ready for when that time comes. And in the meantime, if we are holding events that are COVID safe, where we are distanced and wearing double masks and lots of hand sanitizer and just being able to yell at each other from across the room, then that's okay too. But also, honestly, I'm a big fan of these venues. I think it's great that we can all come together from wherever we may be, that some of us just rolled out of bed, maybe not even that, and others are in offices. We can, Tobias out at the dog park. I think this is fantastic that we can actually bring this together and still be able to fit this type of community engagement into our lives as it fits into your individual life, without having to go to some Wednesday night meeting at 6 o'clock at whatever community meeting place may be. So I think this actually opens up the doors quite a bit, but yes, a lot of in-person stuff too. So let's start planning for that. Some of the stuff that's coming up in chat, let's see. Tobias did bring up earlier a big issue regarding tech type resources, that it needs to be able to be used by everyone and anyone who may be in a position to utilize it. Because it's one thing if a young millennial takes over the chairmanship of any community organization and sets up all sorts of Snapchat accounts for the council, but if the next person is slightly older and not as familiar with those formats, then we're going to have some difficulties there. So yeah, we will need to be definitely careful in that anybody that plugs anything in needs to be able to transfer it and still be functional and feasible for the next people. Let's see. Archiving of minutes, meeting minutes, something that should have a central city repository. I would like to explore the possibility of the city offering us just data or cloud storage space. Yeah, something because that can get costly as it adds up, especially with meeting recordings that we're doing nowadays. But it's a necessary thing, I think. Let's see. X-mission password. Talked about Amy looking for help on 501c3s. So SLCN, like I say, we've got everyone with a little bit of experience in different aspects of all the financial responsibilities of an organization, maintaining your 501c3 status with the IRS, your registered nonprofit with the state, as well as a charitable solicitation permit, for example. So there may be some here that Did you know for you to ask for any sort of a donation for anything for your 501c3, you have to have a charitable solicitation permit from the state, and that's $75 a year. So something like that, we can definitely help you with, put you in contact with the right people. Each of these steps are fairly small and easy, minimal to do, but we have to know that they exist and be able to maintain them ongoing. So we want to be able to help you with that, with this organization. Let's see. What else we got? Anyone? Anything else? Other than Amy says she is not a fan of crime issues. She's a fan of pursuing the crime angle to better things for her community. How about that?
That's preferred, Dennis. Thank you.
Maybe she's also a fan of true crime. I don't know. Let's see. What else we got?
Caitlin has her hand raised, Dennis.
Oh, Caitlin. Goodness, an actual hand raiser.
Thank you.
In the room.
I would love to see Salt Lake Community Network do some kind of education or awareness building around how community council. So trying to figure out how to put this. There's a lot of different things I've been thinking about with this topic. So community councils can sometimes be weaponized by well-resourced, usually white folks, in a way that may have race or class connotations that we don't think about. Sure. So I would love to see some education around sort of that topic of like how historically community councils have wielded power within communities that maybe disadvantages low income, people of color, people who don't necessarily have the time and resources to join those kind of efforts. And I think we see it a lot with housing discussions in Salt Lake City, just how, we don't often think about how the opposition that we have to certain ordinances or the way that things are rolled out across a city can impact equity. I would love to see maybe an outside voice or group come in and provide some education around that related to the discussion about increasing like diversity and inclusion in our representation. Also just helping us understand how historically these community councils have been used in a way that may disadvantage some groups, or at least influence policy in a way that maybe ignores or minimizes other groups. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. We've got to educate people and make people aware of what missteps we might be making, so that we can correct those steps, create some best practices that can help us to avoid those missteps. Yeah, absolutely. So much like with the city did the panel recently with the police regarding equity and policing. Yeah, we should absolutely do something like that. So that'd be great. I'd love to connect with Caitlin and maybe put something together there. Let's see if we can't do something like that.
Dennis, I wonder if merging that effort with the improving diversity on the councils, those things kind of go hand in hand.
No question.
So I would suggest maybe rather than multiple groups that we might make that a thrust of the diversity on councils group.
Let's start taking steps. Caitlin, would you be interested in leading or at the very least participating in a separate committee regarding diversity and engagement?
Definitely.
All righty. Any other volunteers?
You can sign me up as well, Dennis. This is Richard.
All righty.
I saw Nigel's hand go up too. So.
Okay. Look at that.
Rhonda has been patiently waiting to provide a comment as well.
Oh, Rhonda found the hands up sign. Alrighty. Rhonda, what do you got?
Hey, everybody. It's so great to see all of you. Everybody can hear me? Yes? Good. So I've really missed this past year going to community councils. For those of you, there's a lot of my friends here on this call, a lot of you that I've gotten to know through community councils over the course of the past 5 years or so. And I have really, really appreciated my interaction with community councils. And I just want to say that for me, it has been an invaluable part of my job as an outreach director for Congressman Stewart. So those of you that don't know me, I do a lot of his outreach here in the state. And, you know, I've been able to take back to him comments, questions, ideas for legislation that I never would have received had I not had touch points with community council. So you're doing great work. I know it's hard sometimes to involve young people. We're seeing that across the board everywhere. I paid close attention to Alan's comments on that. But, you know, as people get a little bit older, they do tend to recognize the, you know, the great feelings and community service that, you know, organizations like yours provides. And as they, you know, go out into their communities and work and get to know people, we do see more and more of that as, you know, as people get older. So I would just say, keep up the good work. I am happy to come to any community council meeting. I know most of you are not meeting in person, but via Zoom or whatever, I'm happy to always give a federal update. I think that a lot of people might be surprised at some of the things we're working on, because, you know, the news, you know, they always want the things that are going to be probably the most divisive and, you know, the most sensational, and that's what you hear about. But I do think some people might be surprised at some of the things that are happening on a federal level. So I just, you know, wanted to put all that out there and thank all of you for your good work. So I'm happy to help however I can. I can never be a voting member, but I can always support, even with service projects or whatever. So please reach out.
All righty. Sounds great, Rhonda. And I've definitely appreciated you. You know, I've known you for years showing up at community council meetings, so, and being willing to listen to the comments from the community. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Cool. Let's see. We have any other brilliant insights on how Salt Lake City and community organizations and SLCN need to better support each other?
Hey, Dennis, if I could just add real fast. I feel like the point of what I wanted to bring to all of this is that sort of the operating norm, from my understanding in Salt Lake City, is that the way that we're set up administratively and policy-wise is there's a clear division between the city and community councils. And, you know, a lot of the conversation in here is about the city starting to provide a little bit of administrative support for community councils. And I would say that's currently not how we're set up. I think that's a conversation that we certainly could have. I think that there will be conversations around equity and, like, you know, if we're providing those sorts of services for you all as nonprofits, why not other nonprofits that also serve communities within Salt Lake City, right? And so it could open up a door, not saying that that's not a thing, but that we just need to consider all of those aspects. And obviously there's a unique relationship between community councils and the city. What I hope would happen is that we can utilize the SLCN to sort of, you know, process what things as a whole you all really would like the city to provide. And then we can, you know, bring that as sort of as a proposal to the city. It might require council involvement and budget changes and staffing changes and all that stuff in order to actually provide that well, right? Rather than us just being, oh my gosh, like we got to like also do this component as well. So we want to make sure if we're going to do it, we're going to do it well. So I'm excited for the SLCN. I really hope that this can be such a robust tool for you all to use to benefit each other and also to interface with the city so that we can be responsive to all of your needs collectively.
Lovely. Then I do think there was a lot of good input here. It seems that SLCN can be a good focal point, a hub for this hub and spoke model that we can help to support each other and to be stronger in our own communities. Let's see. I am going to call specifically on Paul Johnson because you have been quiet all morning and yet you've been sitting there listening diligently. Do you have anything to add?
I have been listening. I think sometimes I need to talk less. So I think I would love to see the city kind of as a base, where a knowledge base for community councils that would be really helpful for, particularly for the situations where a community council maybe kind of falls apart and somebody picks up the pieces down the road. And if information was our central location, if there was training that a community council coordinator on the city level was able to provide, that helped get people going and could help them recover passwords, or help them take over a city sponsored account. I just think, I think as a newer community council, we're pretty small in Central Ninth and we're very, very poor. So, you know, just for our council, I know I pay our registration or our state fee myself to register with the state every year. And so little things like that, it's not much, but it would be nice if there was assistance from the city for things like that. I know that there is a question and concern amongst some community council organizations that they don't want to be under the thumb of the city. They want to be independent. I think you can find a good balance between both and maintain your independence, but use resources provided by the city. So I love this discussion and I think we're all on the right path. So.
Fantastic. And just to reiterate, I want SLCN to be that focal point for us to be able to get you whatever help you need on being able to pay for those. So hopefully we can get you plugged into X Mission to get free web hosting so you don't have to pay for that ongoing. And get it down, start whittling it down, each of our individual costs and administrative needs so that we can make it a little easier for everyone. I think this has been a great discussion. We are pretty close to an end time here. Do want to bring up that next month, correct me if I'm wrong, Jasmine, are we just aiming for this same second Thursday at 9 a.m.?
Yes, aiming for the same second Thursday, 9 a.m.
If anyone is open to any other day of the week, it would help me because Thursday mornings are tough. But anywho, right now we're planning on March 11th, 9 a.m. Doing elections as well, just to confirm that who's going to lead this battle on behalf of SLCN. So I know that Jasmine had put a link in the chat in the beginning there for anyone to click on there to go to fill out a quick info form that allows us to know anybody that wants to throw their name in the hat for any given position. A reminder too that we have our executive committee, chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer, and then the entire board. The entire board is made up of our entire membership, which is going to be either your chair or their designated representative from each of the recognized community organizations throughout Salt Lake City. So whether you like it or not, you guys are all members already of the board. So each of our different community organizations have a single vote. Generally not a whole lot of stuff we need to vote on as a group because we're just really trying to support each other. And then, so you guys are all on the board. It's really just those 4 executive committee positions to try and keep this train chugging forward. So we certainly hope to see you then next month and to keep this conversation going. Jasmine, do please help me remember that Caitlin, Richard, and Nigel would like to get together regarding some form of diversity and engagement and all those issues. Let's see. Rhonda, I hope you could see in the chat that there were some questions specifically on a federal level that I will let you connect with those people. Let me know if you need any help on that front. Jasmine, were you saying something?
Oh, well, Amy had her hand raised, and then I have one last thing to throw out there before we let everybody go.
Sorry, I lost the hand in the corner there. What's up, Amy?
Hey, I wanted to bring up the idea, or not the idea, the reality that Both Central 9th and East Liberty Park got Zoom bombed this past month. And we took some precautions in Ballpark and we were not Zoom bombed. Paul revealed to me that he found the nefarious Twitter account that was spreading around information publicly, encouraging folks to Zoom bomb meetings. It looked like a very mean person, but just wanted to let you all know that that is a possibility. And I know I've emailed some of you individually and talked about that. Just wanted to give an opportunity for anybody else to share their experience in being Zoom bombed, or if folks wanted to talk about how to effectively combat that.
And
Was there?
oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to add that during our meeting with the mayor had asked me to look into how the city could help avoid that as well. I talked with the library. They have a little bit of a training on how, like, security practices around Zoom, that if any of you are interested in connecting with library staff to go through that training, I'm sure they would be happy to do that. I'll send out an email about it.
Thank you very much, Weston.
I can
would very
recommend
much
that
appreciate
training
that.
personally. It was okay. They're very helpful.
I, having been a party to both of those community councils recently, Paul, I think, handled the situation with aplomb. It was fantastic. Considering how heavily bombarded he was, he did a great job of maintaining his cool and nailing it down. And Amy did a great job of maintaining the security in there so that it wasn't a problem at all, due to the heads up from seeing Elko and Central 9th get hit.
You need more than one person. That's it. You can, thank you for the compliment, Dennis, but Terrell Bodley was a big help there. I recommend getting as many people to co-host a meeting as possible so that when you are Zoom bombed, you can get all the help necessary to throw people out of the meeting as quickly as possible.
So yeah, those types of tips and connecting to the right people in the library to set up our Zoom meetings, because I know my community council, Poplar Grove, is hosting their meeting in a couple of weeks and would love to have all those security measures in place. So yeah, Weston, if you can get that out to us. Let's see, we have also in the chat box, Jasmine put back up the application to apply for a board position. And Weston's also volunteering a civic engagement team from the city to help with equitable engagement. So I'm absolutely going to take you up on that. And Rhonda gave her email address because she's got to go to another meeting. So I would be very interested in what comes of those conversations too regarding issues on a federal level. I might be able to get you a phone number for Rhonda. Richard. So anything else, anyone else, anything I'm forgetting?
Oh, lastly, Dennis, the community council manual that we have been working on here at NeighborWorks is in its final phase, and many of you should have already received the draft and a link to the survey to complete after you've read it. It is fairly lengthy, so please take some time over the weekend to like really go through it, and if there's anything missing, please send your feedback. We really welcome it. We're trying to have it completed and like do a nice design version, have it done and out to everybody by the
I
end.
haven't received that. If you can send it.
Okay, I'll send it to you, Richard. I thought I'd copied everybody's emails, but I will resend it.
Sorry, I was trying to send a text.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. But if you didn't receive it and you want it, please just shoot me an email and I will send you a copy of it. Because it's probably too big to send in the chat over Zoom. But yeah, other than that, I think that's the only other thing.
Cool. This is a good example of making all of our technology easy to use and transferable to whomever may be leading the organization. Let's see, through Rhonda Park's phone number as well in the chat box. No idea how full that email or voicemail box is going to be, but if anyone has any input for Christopher Stewart, our congressional representative for most of us, probably, or a lot of us anyway. So, and then there was, oh man, I had something else that I was going to say real quick, but I totally forgot. Oh, yeah. We have the form for signing up to be a member of the executive committee of SLCN. What I would also like to hear from everyone is a specific declaration on who your organization's designated representative is going to be to SLCN, so that we know, frankly, who specifically to reach out to, especially if it's not necessarily the chair, because we have contact information for the chairs of each organization through the registration with the Salt Lake City Community Organization set up, but we need more info too. To be clear, everyone is welcome at this meeting. We need many more voices brought to the table to be more representative of our entire community as a whole. Richard is asking how many at-large slots are there. So I will clarify. We have 4 slots up that are elected. Your executive committee, which is chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And everyone else is already a member of the board. So as a community organization registered with Salt Lake City, you are automatically a member of the board. So we don't bother with elections on that front. So just those 4 slots are the ones up for election. And this year we'll be reaffirming all 4. Normally it alternates 2 each year for a 2-year term. And just alternating 2 each year to maintain some continuity in the institutional knowledge. But this year, just to play catch up because of, well, 2020. So we'll just reconfirm everyone is on board. But okay, I think that answered any questions. I'm seeing 10:03 and we're looking to keep this to an hour. So I think we've done good. I'm seeing a couple thumbs up and no other comments. So thank you very much, everyone. Hope to see you and many more people next month at our board, and we'll talk soon. Please do keep in touch. My contact info was thrown in there also. Please reach out at any time. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dennis.
Diddy.
Jasmine,
Yes.
will you stay on for a minute and help me do something?
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Okay, what's going on, Ellen?
What I was wondering is, how do you get a background?
Oh, okay, so you see the little, it says stop video. You see that box?
Yeah.
And there's an arrow pointing up.
Mm-hmm.
If you click on that, there should be an option that says choose virtual background.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of pre-populated, but you can always add your own image, and you just do that. There's a little plus sign like to the right
Okay.
of the page, and that's how you just upload your own image.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No problem, Ellen.
Take care. Good to see you.
Too. Good to see you as well. Bye.
Bye.